Hello all, welcome to Get.Set.Law. So in today's video, we'll be talking about how you can improve your scores in Part B of NLSAT examination. This exam is just around the corner, and if you are also stuck that how should I actually improve my marks in answer writing? Why am I not able to fetch scores when it comes to answer writing? So this is the correct point of solution for you, where you can actually understand what is going wrong and how you can improve your scores. So let's get started without further delay, and make sure that you are here till the end of the video so that you get all the information about what is going wrong with your answers, right? So let's get started. So when we talk about this exam, try to understand this in this manner, that in this exam everyone is getting same set of questions, right? So when you are writing something, everyone is getting those same set of questions. Then why is it like one person is getting better marks and other person is getting lesser marks? Because at the end of the day, all of us got similar kind of situation, and it is not something that you have to memorize and then you have to just go and write it there. It is not like your school examination, right? So what is going wrong in this examination? Why different people are getting different rank? This is one thing that we have to understand in this examination. This is one thing that we have to look for in this examination, right? So because this is the section which decides your rank. This is the section which tries to decide what scores you will get, and that is why understanding the pattern, understanding the error becomes important, right? Why most of the students are not able to get the correct score? That is something that we should understand first. Why we are not able to get the maximum score out of this section? First of all, there is no structure to the answer. Always there is a structure that you follow when you are writing an answer. It should not be anything which does not have a flow. Your answer should have a correct, proper flow when you are writing a particular answer, right? It should not be random writing that, okay, I will write it whatever comes to my mind. No, there should be a structure, and your answer should be structurized in that manner. And that the fact that you have not practiced will also come into play. So make sure that you are not doing any of these mistakes when you are writing, when you are preparing for NLSAT examination. You're not focusing on all of those mistakes. Now, some of the students also spend time reading case laws, reading bare acts. The question is it actually required? Is it actually necessary that you mug up all the sections, that you mug up all the case laws name? Trust me when I say this, for Part B, case laws and bare acts and reading the sections are not required at all. Here, this exam does not test your knowledge. This exam is there to test how well you can argue, how well you can present your argument, how structured are your argument, how well you can justify what you are saying. So if I'm saying that, okay, focus on these pointers, what are the reasons through which you are justifying? You don't have to cite laws. You are law aspirant at this moment. You are not a law student or a lawyer at this moment. So this is not checking your law knowledge of law. This exam is not testing your knowledge of law. Rather, it is testing whether you have those soft skills to become a lawyer. That is what this exam is trying to test, right? So there are 4 steps that through which you actually write a correct answer. Because as I was talking about structurizing, so I will give you a 4-step answer formation that you should focus upon. First, in your introduction, try to define the issue. You should not rewrite what is exactly given in your passage, that or maybe in your question. That is not the correct approach, because that is already given. There's no additional input of yours. Try to define the central issue that you're trying to answer. Present your arguments, also the counter arguments. This is what the most of the students often miss out on. They focus only on their argument and not on what other side might argue upon and countering those, right? So your arguments are to be structured in a manner where you are putting across your points and you're also countering the other side as well, right? And then finally you conclude. Now, conclusion should always be balanced. It should not be an extremist approach where you are picking, where you are hardly picking one line. So that should not be the right approach. It should always be how a judge thinks. It should always be where you should try to think of a neutral approach, where you should try to go for a balanced approach. instead of showing your biasness towards anything. That should not seep in. The biasness should not come in, right? Now, how do you start your introduction? What are the things that you should focus upon in your introduction? First and the most important word is understanding the keywords. The question will always have certain keywords. If it is based on conjugal rights, what are conjugal rights? So you don't have to really go into depth that section 9 of Hindu Marriage Act talks about conjugal. You don't have to do that. What you have to do is your basic understanding of it, your simple language understanding of it. That is how you define certain keywords. You highlight the issue, and this is what determines or gives your first impression for the answer, that how structured your introduction is. So always make sure that you are putting necessary information in the introduction and not cluttering it with a lot of information, because you also have a word limit to adhere to. So make sure that you are putting in necessary information only. That is the main part, that is the main way of working across part B, right? Now we move on to the next part where we present our arguments. So you don't have to present 10-12 points of your argument. Just make sure you're putting across 2 to 3 arguments in support of your side, and you are explaining it properly. Try to explain, try to justify that. That is what is being tested here, not how many pointers you can remember, what knowledge you have, but how well you can justify your answer, how well you can present your argument. So if I have stated something, what explanations or what examples I'm using to justify that, that is what counts. So make sure that you are focusing on depth here and not on quantity, right? Now next is where students often miss out, or what students often miss out is not thinking like a lawyer. They are just focusing on what their side is and not what other side might argue upon. So if I am putting that point also and countering it simultaneously, then in that case it makes my answer better than the average crowd. It gives an edge to my answer. So make sure that you are countering the opposing view and keeping a neutral tone. It should not be a very extremist answer. It should be via keeping a neutral tone, explaining, justifying your pointers here again for the counter that you are making, right? Now, when you end your answer, try to always keep a balanced and a logical approach, like how a judge is going to think in that situation, keeping your personal opinions out of it, keeping your personal beliefs out of it. So what question is asking, what arguments you have presented, how you have countered the opposition view. Based on all of this, try to reach out to a logical and balanced approach instead of picking sides. That is how you balance your answer. And balancing your answer is something that is always advisable for this examination, where you are trying to reach out, or where you are trying to present certain arguments. The balanced approach always gets you more score. That is the key for structuring your answer. So when you are giving examples, just make sure that you are giving some real life examples. You don't have to cite cases, it is not required. Some real life examples, some when you're thinking, you have to think logically. Use some common sense when you're thinking, because we often say that common sense is not common, right? So try to use that brain, try to use that common sense, that is it actually making sense what I'm trying to say, is it actually making some sense, some logic. Try to think it from that lens, and use certain constitutional values, like if you are not able to find the right words, just go for that this is just, this is fair, this is what equity demands. You don't really need to go into the entire jurisprudence of these words, but you need to just use it, like this is where the fairness should be, this is how things are fair, this is how things will look just, or something where we can focus on delivery of justice. That is something that is going to give you or get you more marks. You don't really have to complicate it a lot. You can rely on what your side is, and you just try to justify it. That is the main idea when we are trying to solve this exam. Next important thing to mention here, or one thing that I would like to mention for all of you, if you are under the impression that I don't have a very good command over the English, I don't know a lot of fancy words, that's all right. You don't need to know a lot of fancy words for this examination. Knowing simple English language, if you're able to structure your answer in simple English, clear words, that is sufficient. You don't need to know a lot of fancy words, a lot of flowery words. That is not required here. Just simple English is sufficient for you to build your, or to make sure that you are getting scores here. You don't need a lot of jargons, a lot of complex words. That is not something which is tested here. It is not an exam to test your English knowledge. This is an exam to test your argumentative skills. This is an exam to test your logical skills and how well you can structurize what you are writing. So that is something which is tested here. One thing that you should focus upon when you are solving your paper is spend some time thinking, spend some time mentally structurizing your answer. Don't just read and jump to writing the answer. Just structurize your answer, have a mental map ready, and then spend next 10 to 15 minutes, maximum 20 minutes writing one answer. That is the time that you should be spending. Try to divide your time like that, because you get some analytical question, you get one question based on GK and some questions based on legal reasoning. So make sure that you are using that time properly, or dividing that time. So keep some time to mentally structurize your answer and then go in depth in writing the answer. That is the main part. Now, how do you improve your score? Make sure that you are practicing daily writing. This is something which is very important. Do it every day without fail, because most of us often miss out on answer writing. We are not really in that habit of writing answers or writing long sentences. We often use short words. So that is not the right approach. Avoid using short words, avoid using short forms. Try to properly punctuate your answer, write your answer. So make sure that you're writing, you're reviewing, and wherever you're making those errors, you're trying to work on those errors for the next time when you're writing those answers. That is the correct approach. That is the right way out, right? So when you are checking your answer, when you are trying to cross check, so when we see that, okay, what errors I have made, always look from an examiner viewpoint, that do you think that this answer is balanced? Do you think that the structure is completely followed? Or do you think that the answer is very haphazard, anything given anywhere? No. So whenever you see all of those things, that is a red flag for you, which you have to mark and you have to consciously avoid in the next answer that you are writing. So that is your correct approach. That is your correct strategy when you are reviewing your own answers, and reviewing, understanding where you have made error is something which is very important. Try not to keep your answer one-sided. Try to follow a structure, and try not to overthink on your answer a lot. Whatever you have written, whatever you have mentioned is sufficient. You have done your best, and that's it. You don't have to waste your time on one answer, on perfecting one answer. You have to justify your argument, conclude, and move forward to the next one, because we also have a clock ticking. So if you spend a lot of time procrastinating or over analyzing one answer, you might miss out your scores on the other answers. So that is not something that we should be doing. That might kill your score. So that's all from my end for you to improve your part B. Make sure that you work on all of those things. You are writing one answer on a daily basis and improving your scores. Let me know if you were able to improve your scores after watching this video. If this video was helpful for all of you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. Let me know in the comment section by what number by what marks your scores were improved. I'll be happy to help you with more such videos. Thank you all. See you all in the next video.